The incredible UFO footage by Antonio Urzi has startled researchers all over the world. Nobody had ever seen such clear and plentiful material on UFOs. Analysis and research revealed them to be real objects and of very large dimensions. Are we visited by civilizations coming from the cosmos? Do we finally have the proof? An answer to that might emerge from the study of the Urzi case, a mystery in the Italian skies. The history of Antonio Urzi's sightings started when he was young and initially took place in Tuscany, his native region. During this whole initial period, Antonio did not think of filming his extraordinary encounters. His sightings continued until the year 2000. That year, he moved to Milan, and the experiences of Valle Benedetta came to an end.
This experience stopped around 98 to 99 because I moved to Milan for work.
In 2000, Urzi met Simona Sibilla. After a little while, they started going out, and Antonio found out that she shared the same passion for unidentified flying objects. Meeting Simona marked the beginning of a new phase of his contactee experience. He moved permanently to his current little loft, and through the horizontally pivoted windows, his fantastic visitations started again.
Nell'anno 2000 incontro Simona e questa esperienza riparte.
In 2000, I met Simona, and my experience started again. It kept going on until 2003, when I bought a camcorder in order to start filming what I saw.
After the first videos in 2003 and the incredible series in 2004, in 2005, Antonio filmed one metallic disc. It appeared again at night time. The sighting was dated April the 30th. In the dark sky background, the UFO hull stood out. The movements, the light reflections, and the shape were similar to the disc that appeared on the 3rd of December 2004. Actually, it even seems to be the same object, although the second one was less visible due to a darker sky. The aircraft carried on its maneuvers in front of the camera for about 10 minutes. Anyhow, the two discs filmed in 2005 are less sharp than the nocturnal sighting on the 27th of November 2004.
I had the chance to film two supposedly metallic discs in a dark sky.
Le condizioni ambientali sono totalmente
The background was different from the footage of November.
Infatti il cielo appare
In fact, the sky looked reddish, almost amber-coloured, like the disc itself that was illuminated by the city lights.
Even though the first series of film in the period 2003 to 2005 was extraordinarily sharp, Antonio had no intention to show them around. Nevertheless, at the end, he became aware of their exceptional value and of the importance of a real contact attempt by an extraterrestrial intelligence. So he decided that it was worth spreading his case out. He got in touch with some national and international researchers, but due to a series of misunderstandings, they did not achieve a detailed investigation.
Inizialmente il desiderio di divulgare questo materiale era talmente forte.
At the beginning, the desire to spread out this material was so strong that the approach with regard to some researchers was detrimental due to my wrong attitude. As I had no experience, and I have often been aggressive.
The only person supporting him in that period was Giuseppe Garofalo. Giuseppe, Beppe to his friends, was also convinced that the Urzi case should be investigated by other researchers too, and should be made public. In November 2005 then, he met with the researcher Pier Giorgio Carria. Urzi was not present.
My reaction to Garofalo's account was utterly incredulous, at the edge of skepticism. I could not understand why a case with such important material could still be unexplored. At the end, though, Garofalo convinced me. I presented the case to Giorgio Bongiovanni, with whom I have been working for many years, and we decided to involve Jaime Maussan in the investigation.
Appena Caria mi ha mostrato il materiale di Urzi,
As soon as Caria showed me Urzi's material, I acknowledged its extraordinary importance. I was surprised too for the fact that it was still unknown.
ritengo veri i suoi film.
I reckon the footage is real. For that reason, we have involved Maussan for the research.
After scanning frames and the film sequences, Maussan understood immediately that it was a case of terrific interest. So he decided to come to Italy. The study of the Urzi case and the divulgence of his extraordinary experience changed for the better. The first meeting took place in March 2006. The reporter was impressed by the frank personality and the open-mindedness of Antonio. Another element that struck the attention of Maussan was the fact that Antonio did not ask for any reward at all for his footage.
Cuando lo investigamos personalmente, nos damos cuenta que el testigo es real.
When we investigated him personally, we realized that the witness was real, genuine. He's not lying. He does not want money and isn't after fame.
Que el testigo pone su nombre detrás.
He puts his name behind each video, exposing himself to risk. These are all the elements I look for when analyzing a case like this. If I get an extraordinary but anonymous video, it's worthless. When the author has his name and surname, as in Urzi's case, I think it gains an extraordinary value.
Antonio showed Maussan other material shot by him. This increased more and more his astonishment for the incredible quality of images.
Los videos de los ovnis.
In his videos, UFOs are the biggest, the closest, the sharpest I've ever seen.
Además de que
Moreover, the object lets him shoot them,
por tanto sus características
so that their features and details can be perfectly observed.
Me parece que en ese sentido.
For this reason, I think they're really impressive.
After the first positive analytical results, Maussan started to spread out the material of Urzi's experience. Through his program, Los Grandes Misterios del Tercer Milenio and others, on his magazine and in the numerous conferences held in Mexico and in the USA, Antonio's footage amazed millions of people. The news spread out, so other international television stations showed their interest for the Italian case. A Japanese TV station sent a troop to Italy in February 2006. While the investigators continued studying and spreading out the results gathered, Urzi's experiences went on. The videos continued with an increasingly significant impact. On the 1st of July 2006, at about 6 a.m., an Adamski-like UFO appeared. This was the second one he had filmed after the sighting on the 30th of June 2004. This time, the portholes were more evident. You could also see a few small and dark objects around the main craft. Not all of them were spherical, just like in the footage of George Adamski of the 50s and 60s. They were both spherical and lenticular probes. After the first trip in 2006, Maussan went back to Italy several times to carry out further research on Urzi.
He venido a Italia, he venido a Milan, he venido.
I came to Italy, to Milan and Livorno, to meet Antonio's family, and I discovered that he used to see these objects since he was a child. The adults did not pay very much attention to him when he was young.
Y cuando fue creciendo poco a poco.
However, as he grew up, little by little, the people close to him understood that something unexplainable was really happening. Since then, they have become testimonies themselves.
Thus, Maussan also met Antonio's family members, his childhood friends, as well as witnesses that have seen UFOs with him.
Me parece que su testimonio con la experiencia que tengo.
After my 35 years' experience as an investigator, I reckon that his witness tells the truth.
Uno sabe cuando después
After
de
having interviewed hundreds of people, one can recognize a person telling the truth from somebody lying.
Y esta gente,
Now these people,
toda la que
all
entrevisté,
those I
sus
interviewed,
respuestas
they're spontaneous,
espontáneas,
transparent,
claras,
and faultless
sin
answers.
dudar, de ida, de vuelta,
They did not realize that I used to do many simple cross questions. I can conclude that we're in front of a real case and real testimonies.
In 2007, Antonio amazed everybody once again. On the 29th of April, at 6:50 p.m., he noticed a dark object outside the window of his loft.
Guardalo.
Bello, Anto.
Zitta, piano.
Punti di riferimento.
Punti di riferimento. Punti di riferimento.
Che bello.
Ferma, aspetta. Ecco, aspetta, guarda.
No.
Guarda da vicino, corri.
No. Ma quanto è grande?
Corri, vai giù a sentire, vai giù dalla nonna, corri. Corri! Se ne va! Se ne va!
At the end, the disc seems to suddenly disappear. Actually, Antonio switched his camera off and then on again.
Considering the time, I wanted to have something to eat, so I went to the bathroom to wash my hands. And to my greatest surprise, while looking up through the windows, I saw in the distance that fantastic object. I immediately grabbed the camera that was near my computer and ran back here. The object was still, so what I did was to go straight to the window and open it. I switched on the camera and started shooting. I zoomed in, and the object started to come slowly above me, and I followed its movements. I kept trying to film with the maximum zoom, then I enlarged the range. After that, I stopped recording and switched off the camera in order to grab a stool and carry on filming the object while moving southward. Unfortunately, the object disappeared while I was stepping on the stool.
During the sighting, you could clearly listen to Simona's voice.
Vai giù dalla nonna, corri! Corri!
In quel caso Antonio mi chiese proprio di andare a chiamare la nonna.
On that occasion, Antonio asked me to call my grandmother, because when he films whatever kind of object, he would not like one, but 10,000 witnesses.
Putting together all the elements of this sighting makes it one of the best documents filmed by Antonio Urzi. Studying it closely, you can notice the strong resemblance of this object with the ones filmed at night in 2004 and 2005. A guess could even be that it is the same aircraft, a further recurrence that makes the Urzi case comparable to other important contact experiences of the past.
Me parece que el caso de Antonio Urzi es uno de los más extraordinarios.
I think that Urzi's case is one of the most extraordinary ones in the history of the unidentified flying objects phenomenon.
Tiene características especiales.
It has special features similar to the cases of George Adamski and Billy Meyer.
Tenemos diversos tipos de videos que se ha tomado. Algunos casuales, accidentales.
We have different kinds of videos. Some of them are casual, accidental. Others are made by dedicated people that managed to film possibly as many videos as Antonio Urzi. But nobody shows the peculiarity that these objects really pose for them. They seem to remain there still, remaining well visible as if they understood that somebody is shooting them. This is an evidence that if shown to people, it could produce some change, a reaction. This is the reason why I consider it a case that must be observed with great interest by the world investigators community.
And the reaction of investigators, as well as of the Italian and international audience, is extremely positive when looking at Urzi's footage.
In Italy and abroad, the Urzi's case is currently regarded as one of the 4 most important cases in the world. To my opinion, it is the most important. At a conference held in 2007 in Washington, USA, after showing his footage, there was a standing ovation. Rarely, audience and investigators have been able to see such spectacular ufological material.
After the initial analysis carried out by Garofalo, Urzi's footage has been analysed also by the Italian National Ufological Center.
Io ho avuto modo di analizzare I filmati di Antonio Urzi Non ho riscontrato segni di manipolazione.
I have had the chance to analyze Antonio Urzi's footage and I have found no evidence of manipulation. Neither as digital manipulation, such as CGI, nor as model manipulation.
La cosa interessante è che questi oggetti sono contestuali all'ambiente circostante, per cui i riflessi.
The interesting side is that these objects are contextual to the surrounds, so reflections are well placed and fit the background.
The footage on the 29th of April 2007 has also shocked the American expert Jim Delatosso, one of the mythical figures of ufological research, among the top professional analysts of UFO photos and films. He has a long-established career, having even collaborated with NASA, in particular with the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
That video is one of the ones that's the most interesting of the latest group that I've been looking at, because there's more than one thing going on than just the picture that's through the lens. There's the conversation that the photographer is having in the room. He's very excited about what's happening. And when you feel that truth coming through in the video, you have a sense that's harder to fake. Images, pictures, those can be faked and we can find that. But faking that passion, that acting, I analyzed the videos, looked at the fingerprints, electronic fingerprints that are necessary to see if it had been superimposed. No evidence of that. The camera movement was interesting in that it had human dynamics to it, not faked in a computer. And the contour, the shape of the craft, the analysis of the edges and the light reveal that it's a large object, not a small object. So I like that case. And maybe find out who they are that are coming here and what they want. I'd like to meet the guy, go there, stand by him when he takes it.
The Antonio Urzi footage successfully passed the laboratory's examinations. Nobody can assert with certainty that these aircrafts are extraterrestrial, but the hypothesis is to be taken into serious consideration, and valuating the facts, it is the most likely one. In such a multi-case record, spheres could not be missed. They started to manifest from the very beginning and are a very constant presence in front of Antonio's camcorder. They are made of light, black, white, single, or in small groups. And, as we have seen for the metallic discs, the typology is identical to objects filmed all over the world. This rich gallery was still missing the astonishing flotillas, but 2007 turned out to be full of surprises. On the 23rd of September, flotillas made their first appearance.
Simo, c'è il cielo tempestato di sfere. Dappertutto ci sono, guarda quante.
The white spheres were at a higher altitude than those in Mexican footage. However, also in this case, nobody in Italy had shot something like that before.
Mamma quante, Simo!
On the 30th of September, another flotilla appeared, and Antonio's emotion was overwhelming.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3. C'è una flottilla intera, Simo. Guarda, se ti abbassi è pieno.
Both on the 23rd and 30th of September, Simona was present.
On that occasion, looking at the flotilla, I was happy to be able to film. In fact, I had a camcorder too. So there were the two of us capturing these objects, and there were so many. It was a great thing. You could feel strong emotions.
Antonio Urzi's ability to spot and film unidentified flying objects of any kind remains unrivaled. The only one that could be compared to him is the Mexican Arturo Robles Hill. In his footage, you can see not only spheres, but also an ebony, a supposedly biological entity expelling the spheres that form flotillas. On the 8th of July 2007, Antonio had already filmed an ebony during a visit to his family in Tuscany.
Come quelli messicani.
No. Sono uguali, Tony.
That time, there were no spheres. He caught them again in 2008.
Guarda che bello. Lo vedi? Che lavori che fa. È un ebony, Simo. Fantastico. Spettacolare.
In 2008, flotillas appeared again. It happened on the 28th of September. That day, the extraordinary traffic in the sky was particularly active.
Un ebony!
First, Antonio filmed a white ebony, then a flotillas, and finally, he sighted another ebony of a spectacular fuchsia color. The object remained very high, but you could clearly see spheres coming out from its interior. The exceptional event has never been filmed in the skies of Italy, while in Mexico, this phenomenon has been widely and clearly documented several times. As in Tuscany, also in Milan, other people, either family members or friends, were present during Antonio's sightings.
Antonio called me and I saw two light spheres close to each other, flying side by side. During another night, there was one on the left side near the mountains with an intermittent light. Then I've seen another sphere of light that was right in front of here, whose light went dimmer and dimmer.
I've had an experience with him in Milan. One afternoon we went for a car drive when he told me, "Look up, see what's there." I tried, but at first I could see nothing. Then I tried to look harder and I spotted a golden disc standing still. I was very excited. I could not believe my eyes. Seeing an object like this in the afternoon with a blue sky. In 2003 we started skywatching.
Molti oggetti luminosi sopra di noi.
We have seen many luminous objects above us, moving acrobatically and jerkily. In 2003, I used to often visit Antonio and Simona's house, and I have seen shiny objects with them.
Thus, beside analyzing Antonio's material, Garofalo has also given a direct testimony of sightings. But there's more to it. They also captured them together. The year 2008 did not just bring flotillas and ebonies in front of Urzi's camera.
Eccolo là. Fermo. Mamma mia.
On the 13th of March, just after 6:30 p.m., Antonio noticed a disc hovering in the sky in front of his window.
Eccolo.
He rushed to get the camera and filmed a new extraordinary exhibition. Just like in previous times, the disc movements were clearly impossible for any conventional terrestrial craft. Sudden stalls, fast changes of direction. The UFO is exactly like the one on the 17th of June 2004, even if darker, probably due to the shooting time difference. In the images, you could start noticing black spots. They were the pixels of the camera that had started to burn off, and that became worse and worse in the following months. At the end, the UFO disappeared to the right with an instantaneous acceleration. On the 26th of August of the same year, Antonio received another emotional visit.
Oh, eccoli, fratellini.
The disc filmed on the 29th of April 2007 came back. it was even closer, and its maneuvers show even more clearly its extraordinary technical ability. The areas with burned pixels had increased considerably, urging Antonio to change his camera shortly after.
The black pixels have started appearing almost faintly since the first months. And lately they have covered the whole screen.
The shooting is not very steady because of the difficult position in which Antonio was filming. When Urzi films, he uses the maximum zoom available. On one hand, this makes the object's details more visible, but on the other hand, it does not allow you to appreciate well enough the movements and the context in which the sightings take place.
During those moments, I feel that, witnessing such an event, I try to catch all the details in the best possible way. I don't care about filming a building or an antenna, even if it is of vital importance for the investigation. However, in that moment, the emotion is very high. Such an object, I challenge anyone to not zoom in with the camera.
Only at the end of the video can you notice some buildings of the city. Even if they are very large and close, the objects move in such a silence that Antonio gets astonished all the time.
One thing that impresses me a lot during these sightings of such large objects is the silence in the background. It almost seems a surreal world.
At the end, you see the UFO disappear on the left. Compiling the best frames of the footage, the details of the UFO are visible with great clarity. It has only been a few years since Antonio Urzi got a camera, and his filmed UFO collection is already very rich. Yet his experience continues.
I believe that this is just the beginning of a story that will amaze the whole world. I'm here for this reason, trying to know it and register it.
The quantity and quality of the documents produced by Antonio Urzi, the testimony of his family, friends and witnesses, the analysis results on the footage and the opinion of researchers show us that, beside any reasonable doubt, means of non-terrestrial origin are manifesting, and they are getting closer and closer.
At the same time, a great number of sightings take place in different parts of the world, like in Mexico, right? And in Italy and in England too. I think that they're trying to communicate. I think that these intelligences are trying to tell us something, and I want to say it once again. We should try to listen to them.
Many fear that space may bring about a threat, a feeling that some sense when they see images like those of Antonio's.
I'm very sure that inside these objects there are some people, entities that want to transmit just peace and love, because these are the same emotions that I feel when I film.
So, what should we think of cases like this one? An ancient Mayan prophecy announced that, starting from the full solar eclipse, which occurred in Mexico on the 11th of July 1991, the masters of the stars would have started to make contact with the terrestrial humanity. It talks about a change that would have culminated in 2012. Urzi's films are an extraordinary, fascinating confirmation that something is really happening. To confirm this hypothesis, we must also consider the beautiful Mayan-themed figures which appeared during these years in English fields.
Certainly also the crop circles are part of the signs of change, and I'm also certain that Antonio Urzi's experience is part of it. I also reckon that this experience, considering some aspects, is connected to mine. This is mainly due to the reason why these objects, the UFOs, visit our planet in this moment of our history. They are also a sign of change. They announce it, anticipate it. A change foretold by many prophecies like those of the Mayas, but also those of the Christ.
Are we close to a turning point of our age? The signs seem to be here. Will we be wise enough to accept it? In the last few years, unaccountable puzzling events have been taking place on the outskirts of Milan in Italy. Unidentified aircraft hover just in front of the windows of an anonymous house. The phenomenon keeps reoccurring with a high frequency. A young man films them with his camera, producing UFO footage absolutely unique in history. The image quality, the length of the footage, and the different types of objects astonish the experts. What is happening? Who are the mysterious visitors? An extraordinary event that stimulates the interest of experts all over the world. A new enigma to solve. The Urzi case, a mystery in the skies of Italy. It is certainly not very common for people to have the extraordinary experience of spotting and filming a UFO. Even less frequent are those who can do it repeatedly. Antonio Urzi is one of them. The number of objects he has sighted is very large, having collected almost 100 films. Also, it is not just the amount of evidence that makes this case unique in its genre. There is also the unusual closeness of the aircraft, the impressive high quality of the images, and the appearance of multi-shaped UFOs.
Ho filmato molte tipologie di oggetti.
I've been shooting many types of objects, from flying saucers with metal surfaces to spheres, tubular objects, as well as many other types already sighted all over the world.
Antonio got his first camera in August 2003. It was an old analog Video 8 camcorder, good enough to catch the mysterious visitors on tape. Actually, Antonio has been sighting UFOs since he was a child, but only that year he decided to capture them. The first objects he filmed were well-known spheres of light, sighted all over the world and also in space. But soon afterwards, more interesting objects started to appear, like this extraordinary shiny cigar-shaped UFO captured in daylight. Film that resembles other sightings in Italy and abroad. Another well-known type of unidentified objects are the triangular crafts. They became famous throughout the world after the large number of sightings that occurred in Belgium in 1989. As soon as Antonio got his camera, they started appearing almost immediately. In fact, the first footage dates back to October 2003, and it's completely identical to the craft shot in Belgium. Afterwards, Antonio caught them again, filming other videos of very high interest. Where did these objects come from? At that time, the Belgian army declared that they did not exclude the extraterrestrial hypothesis. This statement caused a worldwide sensation. The triangular UFO was chased by fighter planes, but they could do nothing as the unidentified aircraft passed from 280 to 1,700 kilometers an hour in just 1 second. Such an increase in speed would kill any pilot, because human beings can only tolerate acceleration 5 times less than that. The extraordinary nature of Urzi's experience was evident from the first series of videos, but this was just the beginning. In the following months, the quality of his films improved remarkably.
Since 2004, namely from June, I have been sighting the same metallic objects that I used to see when I was a child.
The fact occurred on the 4th of June 2004. The UFO was very close, definitely metallic. They seldomly come so close to a camcorder. The filmed sequence shows a light sphere circling around the flying saucer. According to the experts, it might be a remotely operated test probe, a rather common element in UFO sightings. According to analysts, the hull should be at least 7 to 9 meters across. Unfortunately, the lack of reference points makes it difficult to calculate the exact dimensions.
Dall'estate del 2003, dal momento in cui acquisto questa videocamera e inizio a filmare, non avevo alcuna intenzione di...
In summer 2003, when I bought the camera and started filming, I did not mean to show my films, as they were meant for my personal records. When these objects appeared so close to me with their metallic surfaces, my only intention was to catch their details. I didn't care at all about filming the surroundings.
It has also to be considered that the position where Antonio films is not very comfortable. Most of the filming is from the small windows on the roof of the small loft where he lives with his fiancée, Simona. The sloped windows are pivoted in the middle, and Antonio has worked out a solution to fix the shutters. Moreover, from his small window, he has got a limited view over the sky. So it seems incredible that UFOs may literally pose, making a sort of performance, allowing him to film. However, when an object appears to Antonio all of a sudden, as if it were there for him, he gets so concerned about filming that he just holds the shutters with his own hand. The position makes filming even more difficult. Sometimes, Antonio has got enough time to go to Simona's grandmother's flat, where he can film more comfortably from a small balcony. Meanwhile, the visitors come back for him. It was about 7:30 a.m. when a bronze-like metallic object appeared. There was an unusual silence while Antonio was filming the strange movements of the disc. It's remarkable when the hull tilts so that the bottom clearly mirrors the sun. This phenomenon happened again during the same month. In the new extraordinary video, the object seems to be a cross among the sightings of the American George Adamski, the Swiss Billy Meyer, and the Hispano-American Paul Vila. Unlike previously, in this footage there are clouds in the sky, so that one can better appreciate the motion of the craft. The video has also a further reference point, the window frame. At the end, the disc went out of sight, and when Urzi zoomed out, you can see the small portion of sky where the object revealed itself. Analyzing the frames of this exceptional footage, on the side of the shiny craft, you can notice some dark round areas similar to portholes. Filmed UFO evidence has hardly ever been that sharp. 20 days later, the big metallic discs made themselves evident.
Bellissimo, cavolo.
The maneuvers of the object were like the previous videos, but after a few seconds, it disappeared. Urzi zoomed out and the window was visible again.
Dov'è? È andato via.
This time, Antonio had a surprise.
Eccolo. Ma è diverso questo.
As soon as the disc reappeared, it was totally different from before. The footage remained out of focus for a long time, but because of the clouds, the fluctuations of the saucer became clearer. Afterwards, the second UFO disappeared too. A few months elapsed before the reappearance of objects at close range. It was 40 minutes past midnight when he noticed an object that drew his attention.
Troppo bello, amore. Vieni a vedere, corri. È colore ambra.
The disk stood out very clearly in the night sky. At a certain moment, much to his surprise, the object started to repeatedly light up with a particular violet light.
Fa le luci viola.
I don't know if this was due to its own light or to a reflection, since you primarily notice the circular shape of the object and this light rotating around the bottom and the top.
An unusual event for UFO footage. About 30 minutes after Antonio zoomed out, and you could see the nearby buildings, an important reference which also shows the setting where the event took place. The UFO had gone very far, yet it remained visible but blurry. The sighting lasted more than 40 minutes, a long and unusual duration for a UFO shooting. 9 days after, exactly at the same time of the previous video, at 0:40 AM, another flying object appeared. The shape was different from all the others he had seen till that moment. The color was bronze amber, and it was more visible than the previous night's UFO.
You can see an amber-coloured object hovering with a very light background due to foggy weather that night.
The bottom of the hull reflected the light of the football field below, and the reflection changed according to the movements of the object. Also, when filming at night, Antonio's film stands out for the clear and detailed pictures. It took only a few days before another metallic disc would go so close to Urzi's camera. It happened exactly on the 3rd of December 2004. Depending on its position, it reflected the city lights underneath. Its black color was also original. The aircraft carried on its maneuvers in front of the camera for about 5 minutes. This footage closed a year of sightings of the greatest importance. At the time, Antonio used to film when he was not at work.
So it could have been at night, very late in the evening, in the morning before going to work, or in lunch breaks.
The recurrent coincidence of Antonio's spare time with the visitor's appearance is another important element. It suggests that there is an interaction between the phenomenon and the person filming it, an indication of an intelligent and intentional project.
After years of filming, I deduced that these objects clearly intend to make sure that their shapes and features are well visible and detailed. I can figure it out by looking at their motion in the air. We are facing an intelligent phenomenon that wants to interact with us.
Meanwhile, Antonio met the independent researcher Giuseppe Garofalo and became friends with him. He has been the first person to study Antonio's experience, the first to seriously believe and support him. He asked to analyze the films, even though he was convinced of the authenticity of the videos and of Antonio's experience.
Ho trovato che sono genuini e autentici.
I came to the conclusion that they are 100% original and authentic. First of all, the videos have no hint of computer-aided graphic tampering. Moreover, I know very well the background where Antonio films. I know his habits, the instruments and means he uses.
Studying such a unique case, borderline with science fiction, cannot entail just footage and instrumental analysis. It is very important to know also the character's life background, the environment where he was brought up, and the testimony of family and friends. Today, Antonio lives in the suburbs of Milan, but he was born and grew up in Livorno. It is in this Tuscan city that his family still lives, his father, his mother, and his brother. Since Antonio was a child, he used to call his parents as soon as he sighted strange objects in the sky.
I remember his experience started very early. I think he was just 5 or 6 years old when he told me he saw these luminous objects. But sometimes you don't pay attention to a child speaking and may just say, all right, okay, okay. However, this event kept occurring again and again over time.
He spent a lot of time on the balcony with his eyes fixed on the sky, and he used to cry, "I've seen a UFO." But we usually didn't pay very much attention. We thought it was the fantasy of a young boy, that's all.
The phenomena carried on, and since Antonio kept insisting, the family members also started to become aware of the fact that he really saw strange things.
He was on the terrace in the dark and I heard him calling, "Mum, hurry up, come and see." This boy was crying. He was shaken and sweating. Look, look, look. So we have seen those sort of flotillas that now we see on the television.
"Dad, come out and be quiet," he told me. And I kept silent, even though usually I talk a lot. So he continued, "Look up at the sky." So I did it, and he said, "Be quiet, look over there. You can see those 3 points moving?" I looked at him, then looked up once again, but they had disappeared. Once at home, I thought, man, he must be an extraterrestrial. I know he is my son, but I do not understand what is this strange thing he radiates.
This is the house where I was born. This is the balcony where the first sightings occurred when I was 7, 8 years old. I remember that it was right between those two cranes on the background, where we see a small strip of sea. From that point over there, I started to see the first objects coming up, stopping, going from right to left, spheres of several kinds. They came from the sea and stopped right over here.
Antonio's sightings used to happen even when he went out with the whole family.
We went to the seaside in Tirrenia. While we were enjoying ourselves, playing cards or having an ice cream, he looked at the sky all the time. One day he came running towards me saying, "Mum, hurry up, come and see what's here." We were in the parking area with a lot of people and they all saw it and, we were quite shocked.
I saw a disc above me, very bright, changing colours and spinning around, making very strange revolutions, passing jerkily from left to right. It drew my attention, so I started to cry, getting my parents and the other people's attention. I was about 8 years old.
The family's testimony could carry on. However, they confirm that Antonio has always been very sensible since he was young, making him somewhat different from those of the same age. With his aptitude to spot mysterious flying objects strangely connected to him.
Antonio has always been a peculiar boy. He's always mentioned that he sees things. He's always looked awkward to my eyes. I don't know the reason. I don't know what drives him. He says he feels something inside. And when he feels some presence, he just takes the camera and shoots all the time. People may think he is mad, but these are the facts.
The events that Antonio and his family have described are not new for ufology and contact cases. That peculiar sensitiveness, the recurring sightings since an early age are common elements for other famous contactees.
Emerge il fatto che queste persone hanno avuto o avrebbero avuto.
The fact comes out that these people have had or might have had similar experiences earlier in their life.
Quindi magari o da bambini o anche, diciamo, in epoca comunque precedente.
So it could have happened either when they were children or at an earlier age in which they were not fully aware of what was happening. Possibly only years after the event they could understand it.
Tutto questo dà da pensare, perché potrebbe addirittura far ritenere.
All this makes you wonder, since it suggests that this person could have been chosen somehow to live this kind of experience.
È sicuramente indicativo il fatto che
Anyhow, it is surely important to consider that even Spielberg dealt with these experiences in the TV series Taken.
The episodes carried on until the age of about 13. At that time, Antonio started to cultivate other interests, and so the phenomena became less frequent. This phase lasted until he was about 22 to 23 years old, when Antonio met a group of ufologists and extraterrestrial enthusiasts in Livorno. In that moment, his passion of youth for the mysterious visitors was restored. He started experiencing again the events that characterized his youth. Antonio felt to go to Valle Benedetta, an area just outside Livorno. Sometimes he went there on his own, other times he involved other people, starting with his brother, Gabriele, even if not everyone shared Antonio's passion for the phenomenon.
When they went to Valle Benedetta, Gabriele used to go too, but he did not take it that seriously. Whereas Antonio did the opposite. He was utterly keen. This is why I've said he was so different from the others, from his schoolmates.
La serata si svolgeva così.
The evening went more or less like this. We got there by car, took position, and maybe after about 5 minutes, 1 or 2 lights would manifest above us.
O magari si vedevano venire su dalla collina.
They would maybe come up from the hill and start hovering above us, increasing their luminescence. Then, they would slowly change position with irregular movements, impossible for a conventional plane.
Unfortunately, nobody thought to bring a video camera or photographic equipment.
Non portavamo né telecamere né macchine fotografiche.
We haven't thought of bringing camcorders or cameras, as it was something really new for us. I mean that we didn't take the time to consider capturing frames in order to show our experience to the others. There was not even the intention to show any material to anyone, because we felt it as a personal experience.
During skywatching, many people had the chance to experience at first hand the appearance of those unknown aircrafts that Antonio mentioned, even if not everything was so straightforward.
During the period in which there have been many such sightings, I try to involve as many people as possible, like my family and close friends. Unfortunately, though, I have to confess there has been a lot of mockery.
Francisco Vanci Consiglieri is among those friends that at the time used to see the spectacular fluctuations of unidentified visitors with Antonio.
When
Antonio told me about these experiences, I immediately believed him, as we're very close friends. We have always had a strong bond since we were children, I reckon since we were about 5-6 years old. I did experience these kind of occurrences with Antonio. I remember in detail at least 15 events. I often went there in winter time during that period between 96 and 97.
In inverno ci sono state delle settimane in cui ci recavamo in questo luogo.
There have been periods in which we went there at least twice a week. Although Antonio used to go even more frequently on his own, I didn't go with him all the time.
Fabio Gregori, another friend of Antonio's, lives close to the Valle Benedetta zone. Besides the experiences with Antonio, he has had sightings on his own as well.
La mia esperienza con UFO in questo posto è iniziata all'età di 7 anni.
My personal UFO experience in this area started at the age of 7. One summer afternoon, I was sitting about 100 meters from my house on the stairs of a villa of a friend of mine. I was on my own, and when I looked up, I saw a black cigar-shaped object. I immediately thought of an airship, but looking more carefully, I realized it did not really look like that. It had nothing to do with them. That's about it. I told my relatives about this experience. My grandfather told me that they were also around when he was young, and even my great-grandfather would confirm it. The other experience occurred at about 8:45 to 8:50 p.m. in April '83. It was perfectly visible. Also the following experience in 1997, when a silver sphere appeared at 10 minutes to 1.
The peculiarity of Antonio's experiences is the repeatability and the frequency, two elements not occurring in the other cases of sightings.
The experiences that I had in this zone have been totally fortuitous. Actually, following these experiences, I have tried to see another, but I have never. Let's say none has turned up. It was all coincidental.
The whole of Tuscany, and in particular the zone of Valle Benedetta, including the hills near Livorno, as stated by Grigori, were not new to these kinds of manifestations. In fact, researchers had already discovered numerous cases.
Tuscany has always been a hot region regarding ufological reports. Actually, some people suggest that possibly its geographical position within the peninsula and the Tyrrhenian area may have somehow given it a privileged position compared to other Italian zones regarding UFO sightings. There are other zones like Valle Benedetta, other areas representing an important sector, due to the Camp Darby NATO base near the Tombola Pinewood in the district of Pisa. Additionally, also around that area, a local group called ENU is very active. Basically, it was guided by Mario Bonsignori, who actually carried out a series of investigations in the area and introduced these ufological phenomena to the people in the province. Without his inspection activity, these occurrences would never have been published.
Valle Benedetta up to Castellazzo is a zone in which many people during the years from 76 to 83-84, at least as far as I'm concerned, have reported the so-called moving lights. Here they say that people working on it, I know of Sister Nino, Nugola, Colle di Montenero, Castellazzo Romito, Valle Benedetta Cologno, and Limoncino. All these places are locations where some people, common people like farmers, even if they were not aware of each other, told me of these sightings.
The opinions of experts, together with those of Urzi's family members and friends, describe a picture of an incredible experience within a real context. History, places, and testimonies synchronize to fit these extraordinary episodes into our reality, culminating into Antonio's shocking films. The Mayan calendar is known and studied by dozens of researchers. In fact, many believe that it holds a prophetic message. However, its decoding is not yet complete. The Mayas were convinced that time is cyclic. Every 5,125 years, an era would end, simultaneously opening a new one. Such an event, according to several prophecies, will take place once again on the 21st of December 2012. An important date in which some reckon that there will be strong changes for mankind and for our planet. what is true about it? Moreover, during the last few years, the mystery has become even more intriguing. On the crop fields, incredible Mayan figures started to appear. Who or what could draw these pictograms with elements that join together past, present, and future? Is it possible that an incredible connection is concealed between the Mayan prophecies and the crop circles?
Intrinsic in many of the patterns, especially the stuff which affects the South and Central American regions, the Mayan patterns, as we spoke about before. Highly interesting stuff, and this points directly to times, a point in our history where things are changing. There's a kind of an evolutionary shift.
A leap of evolution. This is what the Mayas prophesied when referring to the date of 2012. And the appearance of Mayan figures and symbols in wheat fields would suggest that the mysterious architects of the crop circles want to draw our attention to current events and towards the end of this era. Actually, the use of the term prophecy regarding Mayan people is not quite correct. The Mayas, in fact, had identified regular cycles of time occurring in the universe. On the basis of this knowledge, they were able to predict centuries in advance astronomical events of great importance, which would affect the whole of mankind. To calculate these cycles, the Mayas had developed a complex system of calendars that they used in order to synchronize their existence with the flow of events and of cosmic energies. The shorter cycle that they calculated was 52 years long and was obtained through the interaction of two different calendars: the sacred calendar, called the Tzolk'in, and the civil one, called Harb. The Tzolk'in was formed by 13 months of 20 days each, for a total of 260 days, corresponding to the average length of gestation of a human being. The Harb calendar was made up of 18 months of 20 days each, for a total of 360 days. In order to obtain the solar year 365 days long, there was an addition of a 5-day month called Uabe. According to their studies, our solar system undergoes a circular motion toward and away from the center of the galaxy, the Milky Way, which lasts 25,625 years. The Mayas called this cycle Galactic Day and subdivided it into 5 subcycles of 5,125 years each, which they considered as individual eras and were called suns. At the end of each sun, they presumed that a strong energy flow would be generated from the center of the galaxy, causing a strong and unusual solar activity associated with global catastrophes. In fact, in 1997, the SOHO spacecraft detected an energy flow from the center of the galaxy, and a few years later, the Sun entered a very strong activity cycle. This gave scientific support to what had been anticipated by the Mayas.
The Maya civilization knew the behavior of the Sun and knew of its cycles. They knew that during this time, a macro cycle would have ended. I hope they were wrong. But according to what they're telling us, and to what's happening, we can expect a very serious situation with regard to the Sun in the coming years.
Also, the Mayan forecast regarding the energy coming from the center of the galaxy appeared in a crop circle on July the 13th, 1996 in West Kennet. The figure shows the Mayan symbol Hunab Ku, which represents the galactic center. You can clearly see rays coming out of its perimeter. Next to Hunab Ku, there are the crescent moon and a comet. How is this connection possible between the Mayan prophecies and the crop circles? Yet the messages coming from the pictograms are even more accurate. In fact, the astronomical depictions of the crop circles often indicate dates too, and in this case, the sky shown refers to a specific date. According to current knowledge, this layout of the sky should occur in December 2012. Does this perhaps indicate the peak of its energetic intensity? The Mayas remembered that already 4 suns, namely 4 cycles of 5,125 years each, had elapsed since the beginning of the Great Cycle or Galactic Day. Thus, according to their calculations, we are now at the end of the era of the 5th sun, which began on August the 13th, 3114 BC, and will end on December the 21st, 2012. During this period, the Mayas predicted new upheavals on our planet and a great spiritual renewal in humans. The survivors would have started a new golden age. A change that, according to some researchers, has already begun.
The other thing is that the law of karma is becoming more powerful. Bad people are being banned. Good people are being rewarded. It's happening more and more. What we think is what we get, and this becomes more and more direct as time goes on, because we are in the middle of this shift. And I think when the shift is complete in 2012, it'll be a completely new planet. I think it's going to hurt, but...
On the 2nd of August 2004 was spotted one of the most beautiful Mayan-styled figures ever to appear. It represents the Mayan calendar of the long count, that is the cycle, or sun, in which we are now, but will end on the 21st of December 2012. It also indicates the eternal cycles of time and of the life-death wheel, the duality. This concept is expressed by the 2 wings at the center of the circle of the Chinese yin-yang symbol. The second figure appeared on the 9th of August 2005. It represents the sacred Mayan calendar, the Tzolk'in, a 260-day long calendar equivalent to the gestation period of a human being. The outside of the circle is composed of 20 elements, while in the inner circle there is a group of 13 bars, repeated 4 times. 13 times 20 is 260. This number corresponds to the days of the sacred Tzolk'in calendar, while 13 times 4 is 52, which is the number of years of a complete Tzolk'in Harb cycle.
Los dos números son importantes.
Both numbers are important. Every 52 years, the 365-day solar calendar and the 260-day civil calendar joined up, starting from the same day, called the New Fire Ceremony. Looking toward the center of this figure, we have a half bow that indicates day 0. It is the day when the Pleiades, the Sun and the Earth line up. And this happens exactly every 20th of May. But in this case, the figure also represents a partial sun eclipse. On the 20th of May 2012, there will be a partial sun eclipse. Therefore, they are indicating a very precise date. They give us both the day and the year, May 20th, 2012.
Surprisingly, 60 days after the spring equinox of the 21st of March 2012, that is precisely May the 20th, 2012, at noon, the sun will be aligned with the Pleiades above the zenith of the Pyramid of Chichen Itza. Are these just coincidences? Why do the creators of the circles want to point out this date? The Pyramid of Chichen Itza was built in honor of the god Quetzalcoatl, or Kukulchan, of which the Mayas and all the South American peoples were waiting for the return. Is this a new reference to the return of the Masters of the Stars? But let's continue to analyze the circle. Opposite to the 0 symbol, there are 2 groups of 8 lances or feathers. 8 plus 8 is 16. Exactly 16 days after day 0, there will be a transit of Venus in front of the Sun, the last one during this century. It is a phenomenon that occurs only twice every 100 years or so and was considered very important by the Mayas, since it coincided with 2 cycles of 52 years of their Tzolk'in Harb calendar. In this case, the transit is even more important because it is the last one for the 3 cycles of 25,625, 5,125 and 52 years, which all end in 2012. Let's go back to Earth. A few days later, exactly on the 13th of August 2005, another pictogram with clear Mayan symbols appeared in a nearby field. It consists of a circle in which a square is inscribed, that in turn contains another circle. This is the representation of the Mayan microcosm-macrocosm, the Hermetic concept of, as on the top, so is it at the bottom. But according to some researchers, the square inside the circle would have an even deeper meaning.
We had a repetition of an ancient, a sacred geometry exercise known as squaring the circle. Now, this is very important because the square in time, well, forever, the square is the world. Reality, mechanical, solid reality, a linear time, symbolized by a square. And the circle is heaven and God and the divine. So the exercise is to make a square whose perimeter is exactly the same length as the circumference of the circle. And the crop circles have been saying, square the circle, square the circle, square the circle, square the circle.
Thus, squaring the circle means balancing the material and spiritual aspects of life. But let's go back to the pictogram and to the other extraordinary symbolism that it represents. In the middle, we have the Hunab Ku, that besides being a symbol of the Mayan divinity of creation, is also a six-pointed star. That is the monogram of Christ. This could mean an extraordinary identity. Is it possible that what for us stands for the essence of the divinity of creation was the same for the Mayas? Since 2005, which was marked by the two beautiful Mayan pictograms that we have seen, every year a crop circle with symbols clearly referring to this ancient civilization appears. The crop circle on the 15th of August 2006 is the Mayan symbol for Venus. We can therefore deduce that it refers to the end and to the beginning of the new cycle of transits of Venus in front of the Sun, a cycle that is for this century, as indicated in the pictogram on the 9th of August 2005, will end with the transit on June 2012. Therefore, we can say that this figure marks the transition from the old era, or fifth sun, to the new era, or sixth sun, that will begin on Saturday, December the 22nd, 2012. But Venus is also important for another fact. The Mayas were aware that at the end of its cycle of eclipses, the Sun would have manifested and would have spoken. With this, they meant a strong increase of activity of our star. Activity that would have deeply influenced our civilization and our planet.
In their oral tradition, the Mayas handed on indications of how the Sun would have behaved, the fact that all natural systems would have gone out of control. And that is exactly what is happening. Very few astronomers consider the importance of the Sun, but it's the Sun that is causing climate change, more than man himself.
On the 31st of July 2007, NASA found a spot on the Sun that was white instead of black. This indicates that its polarity was reversed compared to a normal spot. Scientists have revealed that this is an anomaly that indicates the beginning of cycle number 24 of solar maxima and of subsequent storms. The highest peaks with an activity of abnormal power are foreseen by the American space body for the years 2010, 2011 and 2012. Exactly when Venus will have completed its cycle of eclipses. The same period in which, as announced by the Mayas, the Sun will talk, that is to say, it will manifest its full power.
The last solar maximum occurred in 2001. The next one is expected between 2011 and 2012. During a normal solar maximum on the surface of our star, there are between 80 and 100 spots. Around 2011 and 2012, they are expected to be between 150 and 180 spots. I mean that there will be a cycle of cycles. This has a serious number of consequences, and global warming goes hand in hand with climate change. In practice, the seasons all over the world are out of phase, reaching every year record peaks of drought or excessive storms. Every year, there are more intense hurricanes, more powerful monsoons affecting even places where they had never occurred before. For instance, what about the hurricane that struck Brazil in 2005? And about the hurricane season in 2005 with Wilma and Katrina? A season in which the climate has become much harsher. There is evidence, many scientifically well-substantiated facts, right?
But the crop circle on the 15th of August 2006 is also the Mayan glyph called Lamat, name and symbol of the 8th day of the sacred Tzolk'in calendar. And it is exactly a Lamat, the day in which begins and ends the period of the Mayan prophecy of the Dresden Code regarding the contact of humanity with the masters from the stars. Also in the Dresden Code, on the last page, the Mayas have depicted an image symbolizing how the end of humanity will happen. You see water flowing from the mouth of a snake, from the sun and from the moon. May it be interpreted as a devastating flood? Water, however, symbolizes also truth, spiritual knowledge, and the sign of the new era is the aquarium, whose symbol is in fact a man pouring water. As already mentioned in the Dresden Code, is prophesied the encounter with the Masters of the Stars. Thus, the water coming out of the snake, from the sun and the moon, and the water in the symbol of Aquarius could have the same meaning. Water of knowledge, truth poured on earth by evolved people coming from the sky. Truth that overwhelms the false concepts with which humanity has been living until now, and that are seriously leading us toward the risk of self-destruction. In the light of these considerations, the crop circles could be seen as a genuine attempt to communicate.
I think this is the first communication. It's not a message. It's a very clever curriculum, very clever agenda, because we have become corrupted and degenerate, and they're returning us to spirit.
In 2007, a new crop circle with Mayan symbols appeared on August the 12th. It was the Mayan number 6, made by a bar and a dot. The dot is the unit, the bar is number 5. A very simple circle that left researchers somewhat disappointed. But following extensive research and analysis of its meaning, irrefutable correlations between the number 6 and the Mayan prophecies were brought to light. The simple pictogram became as important as the Mayan circles from previous years. A few weeks earlier, a circle with Aztec features appeared, indicating August the 18th, 2007, through astronomical symbols. On that date, there would have been a conjunction between the Sun and Venus. The circle with the Mayan 6 appeared on August the 12th. Thus, there were exactly 6 days left to get to the same conjunction indicated a few days before by the Aztec formation. In addition, before the next transit of Venus in front of the Sun on the 6th of June 2012, another 6 conjunctions like this one will occur. An astronomical event announced also by the previous circles, whose meaning we have already analysed. Moreover, if we count from the year of its appearance, we find out that the circle of the Mayan 6 shows also the number of years left to 2012.
Such a 6 is often taken as the symbol for heaven, so we have a heavenly design surrounded by the unity of the one, the oneness. In such a simple design, such a powerful, powerful, powerful message.
In short, a figure far from being simple or random, not only for its meaning. If we look more closely at the pictogram, the concept of paradise described by Gary King emerges also in relation to the Mayas. Within the small circle representing the unity, the layout of wheat forms 13 spirals perfectly highlighted. An important Mayan prophecy is called of 9 hells and 13 heavens. With the 9 hells, the Mayas indicated the period beginning in 1519, the year in which the Spanish conquistadors landed on their shores, and ending in December 2012. From that moment, the 13 heavens will begin. So, the message of the circle might also be the following. 6 more years are to go before the beginning of the period of the 13 heavens. The message that comprises, in fact, was explained by Gary King. The 2008 crop circle season started once more with an extraordinary pictogram linked to the 2012 Mayan prophecy. This connection was not clear at the very beginning. In fact, it did not have the characteristic features of the previous figures. This crop circle appeared in Wiltshire on July the 15th, and it represents the solar system. The dimensions of the planets do not actually respect their real proportions, yet the crop circle highlights the distinction between their internal and external orbits. It is also worth noting the precision with which Pluto's eccentric orbit was represented. As we already said, the crop circle's astronomical configurations indicate specific dates. Following appropriate analysis, it was shown that the planets will only assume these positions in December 2012. So, the link is powerfully evident. The crop circles point once again to this prophetic date of the Mayan calendar. At this point, we could wonder whether there is a relation between the prophecies of this ancient people and some prophetic books much closer to our culture, like the Book of Revelation. As a matter of fact, contents are similar, both speaking about the end of an historical period, of the sufferings of humanity, of traumatic change for our planet, and the coming of a new era, a new kingdom of peace. The Mayas were waiting for the return of their god, Kukulkan, and Christians for Christ's second coming. Daring? Possibly. But on August the 15th, 2008, in the English fields of Wiltshire, a pictogram appeared that left everybody speechless. The image represented was very powerful indeed, a Christian cross. What should we think after this new feat? Counting up the number of circles in the horizontal and vertical arms of the cross and the great circle appearing behind the intersection of the two arms, we reach a total of 13. Does this also refer to the Mayan prophecy of the 13 heavens? We must not forget that this concept of a common spiritual identity already occurred in a previous circle. Historically, this had been already acknowledged by the first missionaries who accompanied the conquistadors. In fact, they had the chance to know the Mayan religion. Unfortunately, they considered it a creation of the devil who wanted to confuse them, so they destroyed this precious cultural heritage. Fortunately, today we are possibly more open to such a hypothesis. We should also recall that in Palenque, the ancient Mayan city where the renowned King Pacal's sepulchral stone stands, there is a temple called Temple of the Cross, where this symbol is depicted.
I think that we finally got to a conclusion. That's to say, they finally identified themselves by using a symbol that has an immense value for the whole of humanity. It has no need of many explanations, as it's a symbol that everybody in the world can recognize. Not only the Christians, who obviously understand its importance, but even lay people know about it. They are saying, it is us. We are these beings, and, whether you like it or not, we are connected to Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ intended not just the Christian religion, because this way we would discriminate against Islam and Buddhism. Jesus Christ is actually intended as a bearer of a universal message. That's to say, we are connected to the values of love, peace, brotherhood and justice that this man, who died on the cross for all of you, does represent.
We could still carry on describing further data and symbols related to the knowledge and prophecies of the Mayas, which have appeared in the extraordinary English crop circles. Could the Mayas really predict future events? Do these warnings have a real foundation? Now, even scientists confirm that the Earth is a living entity, a complex organism. The message coming from the ancient Mayas and modern crop circles appears to be the same. A change of conscience is absolutely necessary, as never before in human history. A message of warning and hope coming from a past whose importance is hardly being recognized.
It is funny that now it's happening, exactly what has been announced. Changes are predicted, and it seems that they are actually taking place. Thus, looking at our old generations or ancient civilizations as if they were less developed and therefore inferior to us is wrong. They were as intelligent as we are, or even smarter. After the tsunami in 2005, NASA checked on March 21st, 2005, and recorded with absolute precision the spring equinox from Chichen Itza. Why? Because they did not possess a single tool that allowed them to determine the position of the sun with the same accuracy with which it is measured at Chichen Itza. So we see that not only modern science accepts the phenomenon, but it even needs it. This means that not only does it accept the fact that these ancient civilizations had a very precise knowledge, but they are even taking advantage of it. Therefore, considering this, I suggest that we should begin to respect the ancient civilizations.
And this is what the creators of the pictograms did. Whether human or alien, they amplified the message coming from the cultures of the past, such as the Mayas, through a fascinating symbolism beautifully engraved on the wheat fields of England.
It is funny that now it's happening, exactly what has been announced. Changes are predicted, and it seems that they are actually taking place.
This is the best footage and most comprehensive footage available of when the crop circle takes.
I think this is the first communication.
This points directly to times, a point in our history where things are changing.
What's happening in Mexico's skies? Why is it that in the last 15 years, unidentified flying objects have flown through these skies with a frequency that seems to be steadily increasing? The number of witnesses is multiplying too, and thanks to technology, so is the number of amateur films. The media have documented these incredible episodes, and many people are now wondering what's happening in Mexico. The most organized of them are a group of researchers who have begun an unprecedented project in the history of modern ufology, systematically studying and monitoring the sky. Everything is filmed, recorded, and scientifically documented. The team's name is the Vigilantes, and their work has produced an incredible number of photographs, testimonies, and films, which are analyzed very carefully. The amount of material was so impressive that it led the researchers to think of Mexico as a true contact point. It all began with the total solar eclipse that took place in Mexico on the 11th of July 1991, coinciding with an ancient Mayan prophecy. The prophecy foretold that such an eclipse in Mexico would mark the beginning of humanity's encounter with the Lords of the Stars. It was all written in the Dresden Codex, one of the few documents that escaped the wrath of the Spanish conquistadors. But let's get back to the eclipse. On the 11th of July 1991, millions of people and hundreds of video cameras followed this spectacular astronomical event. Initially, nobody seemed to notice the presence of an anomalous aircraft hovering in the sky over Mexico City. But when reviewing the footage later, many people noted the intruder. It seemed to be made of metal that reflected the sunlight, and it was shaped like a classic flying saucer. The sighting created quite a stir, and even the TV media became involved, especially researcher and journalist Jaime Maussan. In the days following the eclipse, the staff of Televisa, one of Mexico's largest private TV networks, was flooded with videos of the mysterious aircraft. The public's curiosity grew. What exactly was the object filmed during the eclipse? Where did it come from? Could it possibly be a confirmation of the mysterious Mayan prophecy? Demetrio Feria, one of the first members of the Vigilantes, remembers that day well.
My experience began in June of 1991, before the great eclipse that took place in Mexico on the 11th of July of that year. That was when I decided to film them. I already had a video camera, and I wanted to know whether the phenomenon was real or just a bunch of lies, special effects or something like that. And luckily, I managed to capture them on film. I devoted quite a bit of time to them between June and November, and I began filming them one dawn in November at 5 in the morning.
Ruben Villatoro also remembers the eclipse well. That was the moment he decided to become a vigilante.
After
the total solar eclipse on the 11th of July 1991, Jaime Maussan went on television and said that at the time of the eclipse, there were people who had filmed the UFOs with their video cameras. I decided that it was important to follow their example. I bought a video camera, and over the years, I've filmed several objects flying over Mexico City.
The event during the eclipse seemed to have opened a Pandora's box of UFO sightings. Thus, Mexico saw the beginning of one of the most intense waves of sightings in history. Without a doubt, the remarkable availability of cameras and video cameras improved the potential for sightings. But the number of sightings only began to grow exponentially after the eclipse of the 11th of July 1991. Footage from Mexico traveled around the world, amazing those who saw the videos and bringing much joy to scholars who had never had so much material to analyze. Of all the investigators, Jaime Maussan is the most responsible for having researched and disseminated the large quantity of video footage captured in Mexico by both occasional witnesses and by the Vigilantes. The idea to start this group was also his.
The Vigilantes group was Jaime's idea. He was the one to form the group, and when I arrived, it was already in existence. The group still exists. Its members are few, but those who have stayed are at the forefront of this research.
Today, Jaime Maussan directs and coordinates the Vigilantes' work alongside researcher Pedro Avila. His videos of unidentified flying objects have circulated all around the world, generating a great deal of interest. For over 15 years, Pedro has lived the life of a near recluse in his small room due to a debilitating illness that has practically immobilized him. Despite this, Pedro Avila has made some very important contributions to international ufological research from within his small world. A small window and a piece of sky are his only contact with the outside world, which he observes carefully from the first hours of the day well into the night. He's a full-time vigilante, and without a shadow of a doubt, he's one of the best.
A lot of people ask me, or wonder why most of my videos were filmed from this little window. Well, there are two reasons. First of all, I have a little window no more than 1.8 meters in length and 1 meter in height, and my visual angle is quite limited. Therefore, it's a bit difficult for me to make out these objects, and in this little space, I've managed to record everything that I've filmed to the present. The second reason is that some time ago, I was diagnosed with an illness known as progressive muscular dystrophy, which obviously gets worse with time, and now I can't leave the house like I used to. In the past, I used to film these videos from the garden or the garage. But when my health grew delicate, I was forced to stay in my room. I thought that this would limit my ability to film videos, since I didn't have the same extent of sky that I could see from the garden. However, I was greatly surprised because I realized that from here, from this little window, I've recorded the best videos I've ever shot.
Pedro is a true example of extraordinary passion and willpower. Armed with his camera, video camera, and binoculars, he has captured some of the best footage of unidentified flying objects ever filmed. His collection includes some light spheres and the famous flotillas.
Sabemos que dentro de la investigación OVNI, los objetos que más abundan son las esferas.
We know that the most common objects in UFO investigation are spheres, which can be a single white sphere or silver spheres, black, blue, red, or multicolored. Sometimes there may be only two of them, and other times we've been able to film flotillas composed of over 300 or 500 objects. Often they shift one way and the other. They interact. These are the most interesting sightings.
One of the most important videos of spheres was recorded in Mexico in 2002. The images clearly show two spheres revolving in the sky. Ordinarily, the spheres appear to be shiny and white, but in this film, the sphere's metal form is clearer than ever before. This footage confirms statements made by many other witnesses who claim to have seen similar spheres fly through the sky and suddenly change state, going from luminous to metallic. In addition to flotillas and spheres, Pedro has also filmed some unconventional flying objects of a totally unexplained appearance.
En una ocasión,
I once filmed 6 dark objects that look like watermelon seeds, like little black seeds. These 6 objects formed a shape in the sky very much like a flower with 6 petals. The strange thing is that when we zoom in, when we analyze the video, when we add filters and all the rest, we can't seem to find a structure. In other words, the objects are moving rhythmically, with an amazing synchronicity, and always keeping the same position as if they were a flower, spinning, going up and down, but always keeping the same distance, despite there being no structure between the objects.
Avia's video is the first to show an object of such a shape flying in broad daylight. Pedro Avia has filmed objects demonstrating incredible abilities that have never before been documented. Thanks to his commitment and an original filming technique, he has produced results showing that the mysterious unidentified flying objects may have features we don't yet know about, which are of extraordinary interest.
One of the videos I consider the most important involves objects that are invisible to the naked eye and which can only be captured by using infrared vision. To do this, I developed a special technique using two video cameras. One films in the usual spectrum and the other films in the infrared spectrum. To use them both, I made a special rigging and placed one camera atop the other, training them on the same point. That is, the same focal distance, the same level of zoom. I frame the images so that they show the exact same thing. Therefore, what the normal camera sees is also what the infrared camera sees. This is very important because it demonstrates that there are objects moving in the sky that are invisible to the human eye, and we can't perceive their presence.
The surprising results achieved with this technique have aroused great interest in various parts of the world.
Once I developed this technique for filming in infrared vision with both video cameras, news of it began to travel around the world.
Un grupo de franceses donde hay involucrados algunos científicos.
A French group, including some scientists, organized an investigation group and some research programs.
A mí me sorprende cuando Jaime Maussan se
I was amazed when Jaime Maussan contacted me and sent me an email informing me that they were going to create an investigation program in my name. The main program in this investigation will bear my name in honor of what I've created. They give it a prominent position on their European website, where they explain the technique I created and how it works. A few weeks ago, some people from Denmark came to make a short film, which will be submitted for a competition in a film festival connected to the UFO phenomenon.
The large number of videos that the vigilantes have recorded shows that craft are flying through our skies with characteristics and flight dynamics that differ from the conventional features of aeroplanes or helicopters. And that's not all. These videos demonstrate that systematic and continuous observation of the sky can provide interesting documentation. Quite different from accidental amateur footage, which tends to raise doubts. It's no coincidence that the vigilantes have respectable professional backgrounds.
Yo creo que el escepticismo es una parte normal en el ser humano.
I believe that skepticism is a normal part of human behavior. Many people don't believe in the existence of UFOs, and I think it depends on the simple habit of observing the sky.
Quien mira y pone sus ojos hacia arriba y empieza no a ver sino a observar y dedica.
Those who look upwards and begin not only to see but to observe and dedicate time to this will start to realize that there are presences. There are presences that have nothing to do with objects we normally see flying, like aeroplanes, helicopters, weather probes, balloons, etc.
Lo que a mí me ha llevado a volverme un vigilante.
One of the things that drove me to become a vigilante of the sky was my work as a professional architecture photographer.
Precisamente lo que es importante y lo que me ha llevado a hacer.
In particular, what was important was that it led me to take good pictures, and as a professional photographer, my knowledge of light and shadow makes a difference.
Es algo importante para poder ver a los objetos.
It's a very important factor to be able to see the objects, knowing what time of day the light helps us, when the sun literally brings out the objects.
Spheres and flotillas also make frequent appearances in the videos by Arturo Robles Gile, and they are truly spectacular. Where could these mysterious objects have come from? Some people believe they have captured the answer in a photograph. During the great wave of sightings in the 1990s, phenomena were sighted that amazed both direct witnesses and researchers. Video cameras captured flying objects capable of releasing an incredible number of spheres, giving rise to the flotilla phenomenon. At first, the classic luminous spherical objects were the ones to show this trait. Later, but still in Mexico, enormous tubular structures were sighted and filmed. Further light spheres came out of these irregularly shaped structures. This new chapter added new questions and mysterious elements to the world of ufology. Even the ufology experts can't explain these images. The objects are christened gusanas voladores, or flying worms, because of their appearance. They raise many questions. Where do they come from? What technology do they use? How can these structures appear and hover in the sky without any known flight mechanism? How can they contain and expel the number of spheres that have been filmed? A major step has been taken thanks once again to one of the vigilantes, engineer Arturo Robles Gile.
Esa mañana yo subí a la azotea, a pesar de que estaba muy nublado, subí a ver las condiciones climatológicas, cómo iban a estar para en la noche.
That morning, I went out onto the terrace, although it was very cloudy, to check the weather conditions because that night there was going to be a lunar eclipse, which is very important from a photographic point of view. At the time, in 2004, there were a number of people here repairing the building, and we all witnessed it. But I was the only one who looked up to the zenith. I don't even know why I did it, as I usually made general observations all around. But on that day, I remember that I turned my head completely upward, and I saw an object I couldn't identify. I saw a structure. At first sight, it looked like a mass, white and enormous. To give you an idea of how large it was like two jets put together. It was huge. At the time, I was already interested in phenomena discovered in the sky. I had my video camera and tripod in hand, and I began to film the object.
Al hacer acercamientos con la cámara de video, me di cuenta que la estructura se movía, que no era una cosa que flotaba.
Moving closer with my video camera, I realized that the structure was moving, that it wasn't simply floating. It was twisting, writhing. It contracted and expanded. And when I saw that it was beginning to expel spheres, it was clear to me that something absolutely incredible was happening. So I asked myself, what else can I do? I thought that photographs could be a tremendously important support, and so I took some. I remember that I took about 24 photographs.
The high-definition images that Gile obtained mark an important breakthrough in the study of these spectacular unidentified structures.
When
I downloaded the photos to my computer, I realized that the structure appeared to be formed by thousands or hundreds of thousands of segments. It also had coloured outer spheres. I'll be honest, at first I thought it might be a spectacular bunch of balloons. I talked about it with Jaime Maussan. I went to his office, and as soon as he saw what I had filmed, without having the slightest idea what it was, he said, "Arturo, what you've captured here is absolutely spectacular." There were those who were sceptical, whose unfounded argument was that they could be balloons. So Jaime Maussan immediately phoned a very well-known performer here in Mexico City, who uses the largest balloons in production.
Llegó a la oficina, vio las imágenes digitales y dijo, "Estos no son globos." Dice,
when he arrived at the office and saw the images, he said, "These aren't balloons, and even if they were balloons, a structure like this would require at least 57,000 balloons, possibly more."
Y además, ¿cómo podrían armarse?
How could you possibly create a structure with 57,000 balloons without any gas escapes? And how could you let it fly upwards?
Y además, se requeriría un permiso especial porque una estructura de ese tamaño ya necesita permiso para estar flotando.
Furthermore, you'd need a special permit, because a structure of that size needs a permit to fly, especially because in that particular area, it was very close to flight paths used by airplanes to turn into the airport.
Para mí, ese fue el parteaguas. Ese Ebony Madre.
To me, that was a breakthrough. The Mother Ibani, as I call it. The mothership.
The acronym IBANI stands in Spanish for Unidentified Aerial Biological Entity. And since Gila photographed them in high definition, sightings of IBANIs have been increasingly frequent.
Los movimientos de estos objetos son realmente muy orgánicos. O sea, a mí me
The movements of these objects seems to be organic.
¿Cómo se mueve una serpiente o cómo se mueve una oruga?
They remind us of a living being.
Bueno, es exactamente de la misma manera en que se mueven. ¿Por qué se mueven así? No lo sé. Quizá es su manera de navegar o de estar o de mantenerse.
Maybe this is how they maintain stability in the sky.
Realmente no sé por qué se mueven de la misma manera que ocurre en la Tierra con estos organismos. Por lo tanto, los hemos considerado entidades biológicas.
We've called them unidentified aerial biological entities, or IBANI. And this biological aspect is the most important thing.
Lo más importante, porque se manifiestan como si estuvieran vivos.
They appear to be alive. I don't know if they are or not, but that's the sense you get when you see them on film. We do know that when we see an Ibani, we'll see spheres afterwards, which may show that there's some connection.
These features become even more evident in the videos made by Arturo Robles Gila since then. The forms and behavior of these anomalous entities seem to be writing the most incredible chapter in the study of unidentified flying objects.
An Ibani is a tubular-type entity that is also elastic. It's capable of twisting and writhing movements. It can move vertically and horizontally. It doesn't need engines to fly. It doesn't make any noise. And it doesn't leave a wake.
Tienen un propósito perfectamente específico de su aparición, que por supuesto saben que yo los estoy observando e inclusive grabando. El propósito específico que tienen los Ibanis es de...
The Ibanis appear to have a specific activity, expelling countless spheres into the atmosphere. On some occasions, they have moved from the place where they ordinarily appear and come towards this area. It's as if they wanted to be seen, to be observed with greater precision. Thanks to my work as a photographer, this has enabled me to create videos that I believe are without precedent, even on an international level.
The videos made by the vigilantes are just a small part of the large amount of footage showing the continuous activity of unidentified flying objects in the skies of our planet. The two most common questions are always the same, no matter where the phenomena are sighted. What are those objects in the sky? And should we be afraid of them? Giorgio Bongiovanni is one of the Italian scholars following the wave of sightings in Mexico very closely.
The claims of ordinary citizens, military personnel, astronauts and scientists, and the analyses performed on a remarkable amount of photographic and video materials, including the testimony of contactees, whose experience has been proven to be real after several years.
Ci dicono che probabilmente siamo visitati da esseri provenienti dal cosmo.
They all show that it's likely we're being visited by beings from space. They are passive, unaggressive visits, more concentrated in Latin America and in Mexico than in other parts of the world, but they occur all over the planet. This is happening in a period in which humanity is going through a difficult moment in its evolution. I believe that if clear, direct contact were to occur with these civilizations, it would lead to a truly profound Copernican revolution for us. I think that humanity could solve the serious problems in terms of social, political, economic, and environmental justice, which are causing us to risk self-destruction. It would definitely be a new impulse for science and religion. It would bring about the end of the dogmatisms and dangerous fanaticism at the basis of many of today's wars.
In fact, over many years of sightings, the UFO phenomenon has never been accompanied by any signs of aggression. One thing is certain, Mexico seems to play a central role in this saga that borders on science fiction. And the reason why is still a mystery. Perhaps the only clue is an ancient Mayan prophecy that tells of an encounter with the men of the stars. An encounter that would have begun in 1991 and may end in the year 2012. All we can do is wait, with our eyes on the heavens. The sightings continue. An increasing number of unidentified flying objects are captured on film each year in every part of the planet. And each year, incredible new forms are discovered. The images which have been gathered show light spheres, metallic spheres, iridescent spheres, alone, in pairs, in small groups, in squadrons of hundreds of objects, or thousands of them clustered together in a single spectacular flying structure. And then there are mysterious snake-like phenomena, invisible flying objects that only appear in infrared vision, and more, all in the extensive archives now available to scholars. Studies of these extraordinary documents could bring us closer to understanding the enigma of UFOs, one of the most fascinating mysteries of our time. The appearance of unidentified aerial biological entities, or EBANI, is one of the most surprising breakthroughs in the history of unidentified flying objects. The term EBANI stands for Unidentified Aerial Biological Entity in Spanish, and it was coined by Mexican researcher and journalist Jaime Maussan. One of these entities was captured in a video and photos by Arturo Robles Gila on the morning of the 27th of October 2004. In Gila's opinion, this particular entity constitutes a true breakthrough in UFO apparitions and a new, enigmatic puzzle for scholars. Until that fateful morning, very little was known about these structures, in part due to the rarity of available videos. and the fact that the images didn't have enough definition to be interpreted properly. The video, and in particular the extraordinary photos that Arturo Robles Gile managed to take on the 27th of October 2004, clearly show that the Ebani is a structure formed by thousands of clustered spheres. A sort of aircraft carrier, the function of which seems to be to transport and expel these spheres into our atmosphere. The reason why this should happen is completely unknown. It's a phenomenon that's difficult to catalogue and explain, even for mainstream science.
Hasta hoy, los científicos no
Scientists have only been able to provide one answer so far.
Estamos confrontando un fenómeno anómalo.
We're looking at an anomalous phenomenon that is classified in neither micro nor macrobiology.
From an observation of the photos taken by Gila, we can clearly see the structure is formed of translucent spheres in 3 different colors: red, white, and blue. Until that moment, only one video had shown a transparent sphere in flight. It too had been recorded in Mexico by Javier Guevara in 2002. At the time, however, the origin of this new kind of sphere was unknown. The sphere's trajectory is linear, and its speed is fairly sustained, indicating that it has its own propulsion system. But the nature of the system that enables such an object to fly remains a mystery. Its transparency and the lack of any visible technological apparatus cannot be compared to any known or imaginable technology. Something we could not have achieved with previous UFO sightings. After the video of the 27th of October 2004, Gila identified and recorded the flight of other similar spheres on film and in photographs. This transparent sphere was photographed at low altitude in 2005. Gila recorded this video while he attended a Mayan ceremony in the area called Cerro de la Estrella, or Star Mountain. This site, in the federal district of the City of Mexico, is believed to be magic and sacred, and many UFOs have been sighted here.
Y bueno, pues al llegar inmediatamente, mi cuñada ubicó en una posición cenital a un objeto.
As soon as we arrived, my sister-in-law noticed a large, translucent object, and I began to film it. We were all quite surprised that it could happen in that place.
But Gila came upon his most spectacular scoop on the 28th of January 2005. His video shows an entire flotilla composed of these iridescent spheres. The spheres dance elegantly in the sky, quite unlike anything that had been filmed up to that time. In the pictures, we can clearly see the various colors of the shining spheres. The colors are even clearer than in the video. The images clearly show the same kind of spheres that made up the Ebani photographed on the 27th of October 2004. Thus, according to Gila, this video may confirm that the mysterious aerial biological entities would continue to deposit spheres into the skies over Mexico City. But the phenomenon has further surprises in store for us.
Después de ese encuentro visual con esta enorme entidad de...
After the enormous entity was sighted in 2004, others began to appear, but they weren't the same.
Que eran distintas, que no se parecían a la primera.
They didn't look like the first one, although they showed the same type of behavior during the flight.
Entonces conforme fui captando a estas entidades, empecé a darme cuenta que no nada más eran blancos, sino había...
Once I had sighted these entities, I began to realize that they weren't just white, and there wasn't just one type of Ibani, but other types, of different colors, with different designs on their surface, and with a different way of moving.
The photos taken by Arturo Robles Gila on the 14th of May 2006 are a clear example of the variety of Ibanis. These Ibani are brightly colored and have a helical, tubular structure which is completely different from the cluster of spheres spotted in October 2004.
Se trata de estructuras que están formadas por un sinnúmero de...
These structures are made up of a number of helical tubes, which makes the whole thing even more intriguing.
Más intrigante y comprensible a la vez.
It might make sense, considering the difference between a structure with rectilinear tubes and one with helical tubes. So why helical? Because a helical structure, with the same diameter, obviously, has a larger storage capacity for the spheres inside it. It can contain hundreds of spheres, which they then expel into our atmosphere.
When looking at this new photographic material, many skeptics think that these are only colorful balloons.
Con respecto a los ébanis de colores, yo entiendo el escepticismo de las gentes.
I can understand the skepticism about the colored Ibani, the people who think that they are structures made of balloons.
Pero afortunadamente, yo no solamente me remito a usar la cámara de video.
Luckily, I'm never satisfied with just using video cameras to film them.
Si lo vemos en términos técnicos,
seen in technical terms, video cameras have a resolution of 640 by 780 pixels. And at best, we'll get a resolution of 520 lines. That's why I also take photographs. Photos go deeper, because they allow us to see more detail.
Y la fotografía ha venido a demostrar de manera contundente y sin una forma...
And photos have demonstrated in an unequivocal way that these are not structures made of balloons.
Y los escépticos que han pretendido
Skeptics have tried to discredit this phenomenon, but their claim that these are garlands of balloons is completely unfounded.
No tienen una fotografía de alta resolución.
They don't have a single high-resolution photograph. They don't have photos taken with high-sensitivity apochromatic lenses. Their claims are based solely on the color of these structures.
But Robles Gila isn't the only one to have filmed the Ibani. The phenomenon began to spread, and these entities were sighted and filmed by others too, both in Mexico and in other parts of the world. This black Ibani, filmed in the skies over Los Angeles, is of remarkable interest. On one of its ends, we can clearly see a blinking light. The mystery surrounding their true nature thus gains a new element, which had been unknown up to this time. Once again, Gila amazes us with his material. On the 18th of March 2007, he recorded a new video and experienced an unprecedented event. In his video, we get a real impression that the Ibani is a live creature.
En esa fecha del 18 de marzo, uno de estos Ibanis se dejó venir para acá pasando a baja altura.
On the 18th of March, an Ebani was moving towards us, flying low.
Le pude hacer una grabación a detalle verdaderamente
I filmed the object passing over my head. I was able to film it with truly amazing detail.
Esta área tiene dos secciones.
This terrace has two levels, and we're on the lower part.
Se fue para el Ajusco, para la zona sur.
I climbed to the top part because it was going towards the Ajusco area, southwards. And by then I was satisfied with the close-up images I'd got.
Subí ya sin cámara, que fue, reconozco que fue una experiencia negativa no haber tenido la cámara.
So I went up without my video camera, and I realize now that it was a mistake not to have brought it with me. Once the Ebani arrived, making its usual twisting movements, it suddenly stopped, straightened itself, and flew off at an astonishing speed towards the Santa Fe area, arriving there in just a few seconds.
A partir de ahí me quedó muy claro de que lo que pensábamos que meramente eran gusanos voladores son auténticas naves que pueden.
From that moment, it was clear to me that this wasn't just some kind of flying snake, but a real aircraft, capable of traveling and moving at incredible speeds, much faster than any commercial or military aircraft.
Arturo Robles Giles' story seems to confirm that the Ebanis cannot be a mass formed of mere balloons. The images show an autonomous flight mechanism, an unexplainable propulsion system, as unexplainable as the system that expels its spheres into the atmosphere.
Estas entidades, los Ebanis,
the Ebanis have their own source of energy.
En las grabaciones se nota, sobre todo en los que son claros, que brillan demasiado, muchísimo, tienen un brillo espectacular.
In the videos, especially the ones with the sharpest images, we can see that they glow, that they are spectacularly bright. And I'm not talking about the reflection of solar rays of the sunlight. They have their own luminosity. It's the same with the colored ones. There are also translucent Ebanis, which is even more surprising. And they can camouflage themselves at will, become invisible and not perceptible to the human eye.
In the video of the 1st of July 2007 too, we get a remarkable sense of the biological nature of the Ebanis. The entity moves in a continuous fashion, and the video clearly shows its helical structure. Biological entities also seem to appear in groups. In 2005, Jesus Lomeli had already filmed 3 entities together. Later, Gila also recorded videos and took photos showing multiple biological entities. But the most striking material, showing an entire flotilla of Ebanis, was recorded by Miguel Angel Chavez in Mexico City. In the videos recorded on the 22nd and 23rd of September 2007, we can clearly see Ebanis of various colors hovering in the sky and moving in their characteristic way. The entities move in a continuous fashion, and they show a spectacular variety of colors. What should we make of this phenomenon? What might we feel when observing it in person?
La presencia de los Ebanis, sobre todo la incidencia tan grande que hay aquí en la Ciudad de México.
The presence of Ibanis, the density of their numbers, especially here in Mexico City, has increased substantially in the last 10
No
years.
se ha visto en ningún momento que haya habido alguna abducción, que haya habido algún ataque.
And yet, we haven't seen a single abduction or attack. Nothing of the sort has happened.
Nos vienen a ayudar. Eso es.
I believe that these presences come to help us. This is my understanding, my feeling about the Ibanis.
Coquis es un ébani. Está escupiendo esferas. Está echando esferas, Mina. Mina está echando esferas.
The aerial biological entities seem to be connected to the presence of spheres in the skies over our planet. And their activity also seems to have increased over the course of recent years. Alone, in pairs, or in flotillas of varying number, they're being increasingly captured on film. However, they've only been seen in their metallic form a few times, as in this video recorded by Arturo Robles Gile. At the same time, videos of flotillas formed of metal spheres are rarer than those formed of light spheres. In Flavio Alcantara's video, we see a dark Ibani, and nearby a similarly dark flying sphere. The connection between Ibani and spheres has rarely been revealed so clearly as in the sighting by Arturo Robles Gile of the 27th of October 2004. But there are other images in which the two phenomena appear together. In the first video, we see the Ibani looking like it's closed in on itself, moving independently of the spheres surrounding it. In this case too, this autonomous movement confirms that these are not balls or balloons. In the second film, we can clearly see the Ibani twist and change form, while a remarkable number of white spheres move around it. We can make out spheres which are less visible, which give a better perception of the flotilla's depth in the sky. This elegant and majestic entity has now been flying over our cities with increasing frequency. Just a few meters seem to separate humanity from an extraordinary and unexplainable phenomenon.
El fenómeno de los objetos voladores mal llamado ovnis.
The phenomenon of the flying objects, incorrectly termed UFOs, exists. It's real.
Es tanta las evidencias que tenemos y
I can confirm this based on the amount of evidence we have and the proof I've seen.
No nada más las mías propias, sino la de mis compañeros y la
Not just my evidence, but also the evidence produced by my colleagues and others outside Mexico. We receive material from all over Mexico, and luckily, I get direct access to it. I'm the one who examines and selects the material. The UFO phenomenon in both Mexico and throughout the world is real. It exists.
Demetrio Feria's statements are supported by the incredible number of videos he has recorded up to the present, and by the incredible technological abilities that the flying objects seem to possess.
Hasta ahorita he tenido la oportunidad de grabar cerca de 400 videos.
So far, I've been able to record about 400 videos in the 16 years I've been studying this phenomenon.
El video que yo tengo, el que me ha impresionado más, es de una esfera.
Of the videos I've made, the one that stood out the most is the one of a sphere that I filmed from my house with an infrared lens. It's a little sphere which couldn't be seen with the naked eye, but it was in the sky. These objects are in the air. They live with us.
Esa esfera baja y de cero velocidad.
The sphere comes down and slows down until it almost stops. Then it flies off at an incredible speed. On several occasions, I've been able to film objects flying at a phenomenal speed. I have many such videos. Their speed amazes me.
On the 5th of November 2006, Demetrio Feria used an infrared lens applied to his video camera to film once again a sphere darting around at very high speed.
Cámara estable.
Can the remarkable movements of the sphere filmed by the vigilante be called accidental? Its speed, the angle at which it flies, its ability to make itself invisible and then visible, which is only discernible through the use of infrared lenses, puts these craft beyond our current technical and scientific knowledge. The extraordinary claims thus far presented seem to suggest that the UFO phenomenon could truly be the product of intelligent beings seeking contact. Some people think of the words of an ancient Mayan prophecy that pointed to our time as the period in which humanity was to encounter the lords from the stars. And according to some, the video of 7 light spheres forming a perfect cross, recorded by Steve Burns on the 14th of August 2005 in the skies above Florida, may be a message to be deciphered.
El video de la cruz que fue
The video of the cross was recorded in St. Petersburg, Florida, on Sunday the 14th of August. We know that Mr. Steve Burns filmed it. We have analysed the video and verified that it isn't computer-generated, and thus it's a truly exceptional document. The video was made 15 days before the arrival of Hurricane Katrina. It appears to announce the beginning of a final process that could come to an end in the next few years.
los grandes peligros que estamos confrontando.
We're seeing great changes on Earth, such as changes in climate. We're facing seriously dangerous situations. Global warming and continually increasing solar activity are factors that could cause huge changes in the next few years. I think it's a kind of warning, an indication of what might come to pass. That's why I see this as a very important sign, a very important video.
There are those who are anxiously waiting for the year 2012, the moment of change that the Maya had predicted centuries ago. It could represent the beginning of a new era of peace for humanity.
Io direi che I segni ci sono.
I'd say that the signs are there, and this massive contact between man and extraterrestrials will be the sign of a new era.
Voglio precisare che, e voglio anche dire, secondo
To be precise, and I also want to say that, in my opinion, this presence is peaceful. There's no invasion. There will be no wars between men and extraterrestrials.
Perché queste civiltà hanno raggiunto...
Because these civilizations are obviously much more advanced than us, both scientifically and technologically. But this goes hand in hand with ethical and spiritual progress. Therefore, any contact will be peaceful.
Could the extraordinary flying objects shown in these videos be a sign of this coming visit? Will there really be direct contact in the future? These questions are still unanswered. But each day, it seems we come closer to understanding the enigma of UFOs, one of the most fascinating mysteries of our time.
After the wave of sightings in the 90s, from 2000 onwards, the activity of the mysterious flying spheres has continued. Witnesses with cameras and video cameras have continued to record them. Are they extraterrestrial probes? Are we close to contact? An answer could come from the study of the material available to us. An answer that could change our vision of the cosmos and of ourselves. The flying spheres, an enigma that leads us into the future. The photographic and filmed evidence on the spheres shows that they can operate in any environment. The documentation from 2000 onwards provides further undeniable evidence. Often, the spheres are seen close to aircraft routes. These photographs taken by the vigilantes Fausto Avaroa and Arturo Robes Gil in Mexico City are an example. Video cameras were also able to record the facts. We can see it in this video by Arturo Robes Gil in Mexico City. In the film, we can clearly see that the flying spheres are not balloons released into the air. In fact, they are not affected at all by the strong turbulence caused by the passing planes.
Del año 2000 al 2008 han pasado 8 años. Y lo que sí he notado...
From 2000 to 2008, already 8 years have passed. I noticed that as time passes by, I've been filming entities and crafts that not only are amazing,
no solo extraordinarias, sino que nos llevan a una enorme reflexión.
But even lead the whole humanity and myself to deeply reflect and question us. Are we visited? Are any beings coming from the stars visiting us?
The deliberate movement of these spherical flying objects is clear from these extraordinary images. We can see a metallic sphere slow down and almost stop to let a plane that was crossing its route pass by. Once the plane has passed, the sphere once again starts to move in a more jerky way. These continual changes in speed almost seem to be a demonstration for the benefit of Hill's camera. In this other video by Arturo Robles Hill, we can see another example of the incredible technical skill of the spheres. At times, the spheres follow the planes. The dynamics of the film seem to indicate that the people on board don't realize what is happening. The people who study these phenomena don't really know what these spheres are, what they're for, or who made them. But it is obvious that whoever it is, they are increasingly less interested in hiding them.
Estas gentes, sean las que sean, están viniendo.
I think that these beings, whoever they are, show themselves all the time. We often see them.
Eso nos está enseñando.
This is probably because they are teaching us to become accustomed to their presence, not to be afraid.
Al contrario, yo creo que están dejando ver para.
On the contrary, I believe that they show themselves so that soon, perhaps quite soon,
En no mucho tiempo se haga un contacto.
there will be a direct contact and they will be able to show themselves more clearly.
As we can see from the images, at times the objects are bright and luminous, at other times they are metallic and opaque. This is clear evidence of their multiform nature, the manifestation of a technology that is still beyond our understanding. These photos, taken in Mexico, show a group of metallic spheres in flight. They are amongst the clearest pictures ever taken. The author is the engineer Franklin Rojas, and the photos were taken in 2006. The similarity with the spheres photographed by the Hispanic-American contactee Paul Villa in New Mexico in 1966 is extraordinary. Curiously, exactly 40 years have passed between the two series of photos. The movement of this sphere is another clear example of the ease with which they maneuver in flight. It's difficult to say that the object is a balloon. The difference in the movement is obvious. Its flight is controlled and not caused by the wind. When it stops almost completely, it's even more difficult to say that. When it's filmed at the same time as balloons, the difference is even more evident. Salvador Guerrero has been a vigilante for many years, and he is the author of numerous very important films, which are now part of the history of the UFO phenomenon.
Y es una satisfacción. Why do I enjoy it? Not because I want to be the best, but one of the many people who have proof of the UFO phenomenon,
Que está la expectativa.
who are waiting for the UFO to show themselves. There are people who film birds, who film hurricanes, and people who film UFO, unidentified objects.
Often the spheres appear in formations, sometimes numerous, and it was Salvador Guerrero who filmed this document, 6 spheres in a J shape flying over Mexico City.
When I come across these objects, it is very exciting for me to be able to film them. Not only to talk about them, but to be able to record them on video using modern technology.
On June the 24th, 2005, in the town of Jalapa, in the Veracruz region of Mexico, the governor, Don Fidel Herrera Beltran, is about to take part in an official ceremony. Policemen, journalists, and the public are all present. Suddenly, above them, they see the spheres of light. The governor also sees them and shouts, "It's the Martians!" Certainly, amongst the phenomena linked to the spheres, one of the most spectacular is the flotillas. The films by Arturo Robles Gil are undeniable evidence. In his video taken on the 21st of September 2007, the presence of clouds and the zoomed images give even more the perception of the background where the incredible sighting is taking place. The formations continue to appear. There are more and more of them, and they are increasingly frequent. Hill carries on filming in a punctual and constant way, thus proving that the phenomenon is continuous. This event is now evident in various parts of the world. Italy is also overflown by these fascinating squadrons of flying spheres. One of the most prolific authors of films is the Tuscan Antonio Urzi, who from a young age seemed to be under the attention of these mysterious means of non-terrestrial aviation. Urzi has shot many films of flying saucers, but his exceptional video repertoire also contains spheres and flotillas. A contactee case that is attracting the attention of the main researchers and international media. These are a few images of flotillas that Urzi filmed in Italy. But the most striking video that he caught was on the 4th of September 2009 in downtown Milan near the famous Alla Scala theatre. He sighted a not-so-large flotilla flying over the buildings. Despite many people passing by, no one really looked up or stopped by to see what was happening. Fortunately, after a few minutes, a cameraman of Rai region Lombardy passed by. Antonio managed to grab his attention, so the exceptional event was also filmed by the professional camera of the Rai operator.
C'è la flotilla, filmo con la telecamera. Corri, vieni qua, ci sono tutte le sfere come in Messico. Vai laggiù sul punto là. Corri. Vedi? Ce la fai a vedere?
It was peculiar and self-explanatory, the fact that a girl stooped to pass below the camera operator without showing the slightest interest in the event happening. Antonio eventually also shot the street where the event occurred. The contactees have often said that the flying spheres are remote-controlled survey probes, but also have controls and monitoring equipment for flying saucers.
El fenómeno de las esferas es
The phenomenon of spheres is strictly connected with the unidentified flying objects.
Tenemos videos, incluso en Italia, Antonio Urzi.
In Italy, Antonio Urzi filmed unidentified flying objects,
donde pueden ver esferas,
in which we can see spheres alongside these spaceships.
In the film that Urzi took on December the 3rd, 2008, at a certain point, we can clearly see these spheres alongside what is obviously a flying saucer. It's a dark color, which makes us think it must be metallic. It's not the first time that Urzi has recorded this phenomenon. In June 2004, he filmed a sphere near a silvery disk. Urzi has also filmed single flying spheres. In February 2009, Urzi went to Nevada, to the town of Laughlin, as guest of an international UFO congress. An event that lasts an entire week and that every year brings together the leading world experts on UFOs and related phenomena. On the morning of the 27th of February, Antonio and his wife Simona sighted and filmed a white sphere flying right above the convention center where the Congress was taking place. It is a rather rare occurrence that these objects show themselves in places where there are events dedicated to them.
È fermo, eh? Guarda, l'oggetto. È andato via subito. Perché no...
But Urzi's contact experience is so exceptional that the happening took place again a few months later. In June 2009, in fact, Antonio was in Istanbul, Turkey, again as guest of an international UFO congress. During the event, he sighted a large sphere of light and started filming. His cries attracted many people from the audience that were listening to the speakers of the congress. Thus, dozens of people witnessed Urzi's sighting. This fact had such a large impact that it attracted the attention of Turkish media, who made many reports of the event. Before Turkey, Antonio had already shot other films of flying spheres. This video was taken on May the 24th, 2009. The sphere is flying over the blocks of flats in Cinisello, Balsamo. Just when it goes out of sight, Antonio, his wife Simona, and her little sister run to another window of the flat to be able to observe it a little longer.
Questo è bello, eh? Hai visto roba?
L'ho preso.
Urzi follows the sphere until it disappears into the distance.
Faccio il frame la differenza con l'aereo.
The next images of an airplane show the obvious difference between the two vehicles. In July 2009, Urzi was in Argentina for a series of conferences. During a visit to Capilla del Monte, an area where UFOs are often seen, he filmed this sphere with unusual characteristics.
È una palla grandissima, bella. Guarda.
Ah, ce l'ho visto.
Bueno.
His wife Simona and other friends are with him. The film becomes even more interesting when the sphere goes behind the bushes. At the end of the video, Urzi also films the other witnesses.
Mira. Mira dietro, Simo, è fantastico. No, è muy linda, eh? È una palla grossa, enorme, eh? Fermi? Los testigos.
once, Urzi came back to Italy on July the 20th, 2009, during a visit to his family in Tuscany. He films again a flying sphere overflying the skies.
Hemos observado también, por ejemplo, cuando hay flotillas, cuando hay...
We also observed that in flotillas with hundreds or thousands of objects, when they are very close one to each other, they move in a swinging way as if connected by a magnetic force.
Hemos observado las esferas.
We've seen these spheres moving forward, thousands of them, all at the same time and following the same direction. We sighted them going into the clouds.
En nubes, dentro de una nube. Las hemos observado, pues realmente incluso, de acuerdo al testimonio de...
According to several witnesses, they've been sighted even inside homes.
Todo ello me hace pensar.
All this makes me think about it as a phenomenon to investigate.
Me parece a mí que no son tripuladas.
It seems to me that these spheres have no pilot on board. I believe they are used sometimes individually, sometimes in groups, to make observations and specific investigations.
The appearance of the EBANIs, which is the Spanish acronym of Unidentified Aerial Biological Entities, the incredible snake-like flying objects, has complicated the incredible phenomenon of flying spheres even further. The first sightings date from the 90s. Since the year 2000, they have continued to appear, giving the scholars a really difficult problem to solve and, above all, to accept. In fact, the phenomenon is completely beyond our recognized parameters for aircraft technology. With the EBANIs, the boundaries between biological nature and technological nature seem to blend.
Tiene un comportamiento como el de un ser vivo.
Which is to say that it behaves as if it were a living being.
Se mueven de manera orgánica.
These EBANIs move as if they were enormous worms in an organic way. There are some really exceptional films of these objects.
In August 2007, Arturo Robles Hill filmed a spectacular EBANI as it emitted the spheres. As the object moves into the clouds, we can see how high it is, and consequently, just how huge it is. An EBANI of the same color was filmed again in Mexico by Vianney Lopez on the 4th of October 2009 in the city of Guadalajara. You can clearly outline the EBANI moving within the clouds. Hill too has filmed these serpent-shaped objects literally entering inside the clouds. In this film, dated the 5th of August 2007, there are even 2 EBANIs. Once again, on November the 17th, 2008, Hill filmed another EBANI emitting spheres. This time, the apparatus is an irregular shape, and it clearly shows the polyhedric and multiform nature of these flying biological entities. These films suggest that the EBANIs are a sort of aircraft carrier that transports the spheres.
Pienso que estos cuerpos enormes de gusanos.
I think that these enormous bodies, like snakes, are the way in which the spheres are transported and moved around.
Es mucho más fácil poder mover a un centenar o...
It's much easier to move hundreds or thousands of spheres in a solid, closed body rather than individually.
Entonces, yo pienso que...
So, I think that the EBANIs are the origin of the phenomenon of the flotillas and of the flying spheres themselves.
Often, the EBANIs are accompanied by just one sphere that the researchers call the century.
En diferentes ocasiones han sido grabadas juntas.
In several occasions, the Abanis and spheres have been filmed together, and we also observed that in many cases they are accompanied by a great sphere, a royal craft that's always there. I don't know why, but we can see it in many videos.
At other times, they appear together with the flotillas. As we can see in this Mexican film from 2007, we can see the phenomena progressively taking shape in this film by the Mexican Octavio Fernandez. Octavio also filmed these Abanis in various colors. Together with Hill's footage, the Abanis filmed by Fernandez are among the most numerous in the world. At times, the Abanis, like the spheres, cross the routes of aircraft.
Abro mi toma. Mira, el avión pasó cerca. ¿Te diste cuenta más al frente?
Considering the incredulity and the amazement of the researchers themselves, it is understandable that the public thinks of the Abanis as balloons floating through the air. Everything we've seen about the flying spheres already seems complex and incredible, but in May 2009, the Mexican skywatcher Alfredo Carrillo filmed a phenomenon that has never been seen before. All the objects are dark-colored, the witness is filming against the sun. But there are more surprises to come. The event is also being filmed at the same time by another witness, the Mexican Pedro Hernandez. Initially, Hernandez, just when he's filming an aircraft flying past, sees the same flying object that Carrillo has filmed, but with the sunlight at his back. So the objects are illuminated, and the video gives a better image of the spheres than we've ever seen before. Probably, Hernandez is closer to the phenomenon he is filming. The object starts to slow its spinning motion, and then the incredible scene continues. Slowly, a flotilla begins to form. When the film ends, Hernandez comments on the incredible scene he's just witnessed.
Here behind me there were UFOs moving around, really beautiful. They were yellow, they were really beautiful, and they were here, just behind me.
Comparing the two videos of Carrillo and Hernandez, we can clearly see that it really is the same phenomenon. The statements by witnesses, the investigations, the exceptional images leave little room for theories of fraud, mass hallucinations, or pranks. It is really difficult to think that the spheres are not real or the result of intelligent life.
Las esferas son un fenómeno inteligente, no me cabe la menor duda. Y nosotros hemos acumulado mucho.
The spheres are an intelligent phenomenon, I have no doubt, and we have accumulated lots of film where we can see this intelligent movement. They are part of a project that is even greater than they are. That's why we should believe that we are dealing with a phenomenon that shows the interest towards and the investigation upon us, human beings.
Perhaps one day, this reality will be accepted by the authorities, or perhaps it will be the phenomenon itself that forces us to accept it without waiting for human decisions. It wouldn't be the first time. In the past, events have changed human history. Will we be taken by surprise this time too?